The Strangers is a horror slasher home invasion film that was released in 2007 and stars Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman for basically the majority of the runtime, other than the Strangers, of course, who we never end up truly knowing. It's a really cool, tense thriller, you could say as well, but definitely mainly horror in the slasher slash home invasion subgenres. And it's very compact, very tight spaced. It only takes place in one location, pretty much, which is this country house, essentially. And there are other characters, but they are definitely minor ones. And this film does a really great job at creating tension in all the right ways. This is what a tense horror movie of its style should be at all times. It borrows a lot of the elements from, really classic films, like just the way the camera work is and the cinematography and shot choices and making making you wonder what's like behind the scenes, what's around the corner kind of thing, what's not on screen usually, because a lot of the horror elements that come out of this film is what's put inside your head kind of thing, what's created in your psyche rather than what's on screen. The way they use, a vinyl player, the way they use banging on doors, they use a lot of sound effects in this film. The sound design is fantastic. It gives you a huge sense of dread and anxiety and tension. Not a lot of movies can do, especially when they try to. Like there's a lot of films that aim for what this film is going for and just doesn't land the mark. Where I think The Strangers lands the mark perfectly, in my opinion. So The Strangers basically are known as Sackhead. I think that's Pinup Girl. And then we got Dollface, and Dollface on this cover is like way in the background. If that's the case, I mean that might be Dollface, that might be Pinup Girl. I'm not exactly sure, but certainly the main guy is Sackhead. And then we got Liv Tyler playing Kristen McKay, and we have Scott Speedman playing James Hoyt. And what happens at the beginning of this film is they're driving to this country house. They look absolutely miserable, so obviously something went down. And we learn that what went down is that James was proposing to Kristen, and Kristen was not ready to say yes. Which definitely sucks, and definitely is a situation, whether you've been in that situation or not, anybody could probably understand how awkward it must be and how much of a bummer the night forward and the days forward are gonna progress. James, played by Scott Speedman, had like this whole array of rose petals put everywhere. He got champagne and ice cream and was planning on this beautiful romantic night with like, candles all over the bathtub, like around the bathtub, and the whole house was set up like a romance movie, basically. Romance movie. And yeah, plans didn't go as planned, and then of course throughout the night, horrific things start to happen. So basically, these two characters are thrown one hellish curveball, to say the least, in the middle of nowhere where no cops can get to, and no there's nobody around to call for help. So in the middle of the night, they get a knock on the door, and this woman who's in the shadows. They really use shadows well in this film too, throughout the whole second act and getting to the third, when the strangers are outside running around everywhere and all that. But this woman knocks on the door, and they answer it, and she's like, "Is Tamara home?" And they're like, "No, no Tamara, no Tamara here." So she's like, "Are you sure?" And the whole creep vibe pretty much starts automatically. And I love how she drops the line "See you later," because it suggests that she's coming back, but she just says it so eerily, and it's really really effective. And then eventually James goes out for smokes because he wants a a drive. He wants to get out and he goes to pick up smokes for his girlfriend. There actually is one scene too when they're apologizing at the kitchen table and they're all having this awkward moment because the whole night is super awkward. And of course, they get horny and decide to fuck, or attempt to, before they get interrupted by the knock at the door. And I'm just like, yeah, I totally understand. Again, you can put yourself in the situation, but you also know that that is like the worst idea ever. As horny as you can be, that is just going to raise so many more problems than solve in that situation when a proposal has failed and you have so much, you know, not baggage, but mixed and weird feelings and emotions going on. And the temptation is there obviously to fuck, but it's gonna just raise way more hell. It's just gonna raise way more problems. But at the same time, you're like, I get it, man. I get it. And things start getting like hot and frisky, and he lifts up her skirt, and you're thinking there's gonna be this hot sex scene, and then here comes the knock on the door. But anyway, he goes out for smokes, and then they keep getting the knocks on the door, and it's again, is Tamara home? And the knocks keep getting like louder and heavier, and Kristen is obviously scared out of her wits. My favorite scene in the whole film, again, it's just perfect. It's that static shot, and this is not a spoiler because this was in every trailer pretty much, where Liv Tyler's character Kristen is in the kitchen, I would assume, and she cannot see the shadow behind her with the white mask. I guess you could compare it to the original Halloween too, where Michael Myers shows up in the closet and all you see is his white face and he's in the shadows. It's kind of like that with Sackhead, where he's basically in the shadows and all you see is his white Sackhead behind the piano. And it's in the distance, you notice it, but your eyes kind of go there, kind of thing. Like it's something that's such in the distance, and then when you see it you're like, whoa. And she has no clue that he's there, so it's this brilliant shot that you would it totally, it's a throwback to old movies like Universal monster movies, or like Psycho, or just classic cinema. It's a classic shot, and it this film is made so classically, so artsy. Even like, I wouldn't consider it art house, or maybe I wouldn't even consider it an independent film. But it uses its camera work and it uses its static shots in such brilliant ways, and that is straight out of Nightmares. That shot, it's perfect. It's whether it was done accidentally or on purpose, with every fine detail and gone over with a fine-toothed comb, and whether they had to film it like 15, 20 times until they got it perfect, they got it perfect. Again, the way the vinyl skips, another thing that they showed in the trailers the whole time. The trailer was already one of the scariest trailers I've ever seen, and the film delivered everything that the trailer promised. It's so good. You can tell how terrified these characters are. Both actors did a great job in their performances. I really don't get when James comes back. Kristen explains to him that somebody came into the house and took her phone. She doesn't have a phone, and this is why she wasn't able to call the police. But when James gets back, he still has a phone, and he heard her story, and he believes her and everything, and he's searching the house and everything. I don't know why that fucker didn't call the cops right there and then. Yeah, it's going to take forever for the police to show up at that house, but I mean, you're going to have to stand against these invaders for a few hours anyway, and I can't understand why he didn't do nothing about it. And then eventually, of course, he finds his phone at 20 minutes, half an hour later, and the battery's gone. So somehow somebody else came into the house once again and sneaked in there without being seen and took the battery out of the phone. So now they don't have a phone, and now they're fucked. But he had time to call the cops, and I just don't understand why he didn't. He goes outside and he notices the car, his car is totaled. It's still drivable, but the front window is destroyed. I don't know why they didn't pop the tires either or something like that, because the car was still drivable. And eventually they try to make a run for it, and they get in the car and they look behind them, and here's a Ford truck right behind them with, I think, pinup girl driving it, and she just rams into the back of the car, and Sackhead is in front of the car, and then they run inside. And obviously these strangers, another thing about it is they could kill these two off real fast, but they decide to fuck with them, and they decide to get right into their heads and petrify them. They torture them mentally to the last minute that they possibly can before they, you know, at the end of the movie finally finish the job. Or it's kind of a cliffhanger ending because, as we all know, spoiler review, Kristen screams at the last minute before it fades to black, and she grabs that kid's arm. But so she could have survived, who knows? But it's seemingly that James is dead for sure, and doesn't seem like she had much hope for her. But you can always be optimistic and hope for her survival, because some people say that you don't get to know the characters enough, but I mean, this film could have had you not get to know them at all, other than he proposed to her and that's it. I mean, you care enough for the characters for the film to be doing its job. Obviously, this film is focused on suspense and tension, but they give you enough, not details of their like history or anything like that. They don't give you any of that, but they give you enough of their personalities on screen to care about these characters. You want them to live. It's not like you sit here and watch this film, at least I didn't, where I'm like, I could give a fuck whether these two live or die. No, I want these two to live for sure. I want these two to escape with their lives and crush these strangers' heads in. But maybe other people watch this film and think differently. I don't know. It was heartbreaking when Mike shows up, James's best friend, to pick him up because he gave him a phone call and Mike showed up early, and James does exactly what anybody would do. I don't give a fuck what people are watching and saying that's unrealistic or I wouldn't do that. This film is full of that. Like, this film is full of realistic situations because these two are normal average humans and they are terrified. And yeah, a lot of people are going to watch this movie and be like, how can James not overpower especially the two female strangers? Like, they're fairly petite girls and James is somewhat of a buff man. Like, I'm pretty sure he can overpower at least the two women. But you have to also understand that at the same time, like, this is a home invasion. It's probably one of the scariest situations you can possibly be in, is having strangers come into your home where you're supposed to be safe. And, when you're terrified, I would be terrified. You don't think straight, okay? Like, they react just like anybody would react in a home invasion, okay? I have absolutely zero issues with the decisions made and their behaviors and their reactions to anything. There are some things that don't make sense. Like, I would be on the phone with the cops immediately, stuff like that. But for the most part, this film is very accurate. So Mike comes into the house and he's sitting there with a shotgun, just like I would do in the closet, just waiting. And then he hears that footstep and he sees that body come right in front of the closet, and he takes his strike. And then, of course, the guilt that he must feel when he realizes that it's Mike and he just shot his best friend in the head, and that the strangers are still roaming around. It's it's devastating, but it's again also so realistic because it's something that I could see myself do. Yeah, I'd probably take another half second to see who it was, but again, when you're in that much traumatic fear and not in your headspace whatsoever, things can be different. And then we see James get pretty much, I would say, kidnapped or tied up or grabbed in the kind of mid part of the movie by Sackhead, and then it's all Kristen from then on forward for a bit. She gets to the tool shed. You realize that there's this axe missing from the wall on the tool shed where the axe is drawn, so we assume that's where Sackhead got the axe to start using against his victims. And they use like whatever is available to them. Like they don't carry guns or anything like that. They just kind of use whatever weapons they find in the house to sabotage this two couple. The whole line, why are you doing this? Because you were home. Simple, no motivation. Just you were home. Tough luck, sweetheart. You're gonna die. It's so fucked up. So she finds the AM radio and she uses it to try and call for help, but then it ends up getting smashed by, I believe, Pinhead. Pinhead, Jesus. Pin-up girl. Pinhead. Wrong movie, Dexter. Wrong movie. Pin-up girl ends up smashing the radio, and she gets back into the house and she hides in the closet, and then she sees Sackhead just, hanging out there chilling. And I love her line, he's gonna kill you. And I swear when I watched this in theaters for the first time, I swear she said he's gonna fucking kill you. Like, he's gonna fucking kill you. But my memory could be serving me wrong, or I could just be in a Mandela effect, who knows. But I swear she said he's gonna fucking kill you, but in this watch she just says he's gonna kill you. Regardless, he unfortunately doesn't, and then of course we have the brutal slaying at the end where they're tied to chairs. And every single time I've seen this film, from the first viewing to this viewing, when they get stabbed, I feel that knife going into me. Like, it's hard to watch. It is really hard to watch. I cringe and I kind of do this because they drive it in there, and then they take turns stabbing these people because they're fucked in the head. And the women, like, you don't even see Stackhead stabbing them. It's just the two chicks, and they're like driving it, and then the one drives it into him, and then the one drives it into her stomach, Kristen's stomach, and it's painful to watch. It's painful to watch. You feel it. You feel for them, and then the ending is cool. I really like how they don't show their faces, especially right on screen. Like, sometimes they'll show a side shot of their faces real quick, or a glance. You'll get some glances here and there, like especially from the back of the heads and like sometimes from the sides of the heads. But the fact that they didn't show them maskless on screen was a good decision, because it would take away from the effect and the mystery of the film. The whole mystery of the film, especially leaving them just as strangers. And it would take away from the effect if they showed their faces. So good on them for not doing that, because that would have brought the film down in its score quite a lot. They're driving away, and then they see those two Christian kids giving out pamphlets, and are you a sinner? Sometimes. It's messed up. It was also strange too, when Kristen is still alive and she's bleeding everywhere. She's obviously stabbed multiple times, but she's crawling on the floor. And is it her cell? Is it James's cell? One of the cells rings. So obviously the cell phone was returned with a battery for whatever reason by the strangers. To mess with them. Did the stranger call the phone to mess with them? Who was calling the phone? Why did they return the phone with a battery? It was really weird, because when she gets to the phone and opens it, I don't know if whoever was calling hung up. At that point, Sackhead, without the Sackhead, just picks it up and puts it in his pocket and, fucks off and leaves her there. But it was just a weird moment, like, with, again, no motive and no real reason to leave the cell phone behind. But yeah, it was still creepy. Like I said, very effective movie. I think I'll leave off this review with the experience I had in the theater watching this for the first time. It was I watched this with one of my first real serious girlfriend. Certainly not my best ex-girlfriend. But it was funny because we had this guy behind us, and this guy was the type to talk through movies. And this guy was trying to make the situation scarier, and he would just say these like, "Ooh, here he comes, red rum." His favorite thing to say was "red rum" whenever something scary would happen, or like whenever something Like if it looked like a jump scare was coming or something like that, he would just be like, "Red rum, don't look around the corner. Red rum." He'd just say red rum all the time. And he was like 50% annoying as fuck because we obviously wanted to concentrate on the film. And then 50% funny because he just like tried to make the situation scarier. And then the film ends, okay? The film finishes and the credits roll, and he was like, "That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life." It's like commentating on the movie, the whole thing, the whole time, seemingly enjoying himself. And then as soon as the credits roll, he's like, "That's the stupidest fucking movie I've ever seen." Oh my god, it was great. It was a good theater experience for sure, for a horror film. Obviously, I like to watch my films more in silence, but he still made it a memorable experience. So good on that random guy. But yeah, it's a really good small scale home invasion film that is absolutely horrific. This gets a 4 out of 5 stars, and this easily probably gets an 83 out of 100. Why out of 100? Because I hate decimals. And this is a Scream Factory release. We got the original poster here, which obviously for the simplicity of the film, we got the simplicity of the poster as well. Now, when I bought this on DVD, I definitely got a different poster than this, so I never got this artwork ever. And the new Scream Factory image is very, very cool as well. So, another awesome collector's edition from Scream Factory, and very, very tense thriller horror home invasion slasher that I definitely recommend checking out if you have not yet. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you'd like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. And until next review, have a good one, take care, and cheers.